is about making mistakes and how that affects how we do our job. Hold on one second. All right. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I had originally thought of this like it would be an article or something like that that I would even give to Novogradac. Maybe. I don't know. But I thought about this as something that I wanted to talk about because there's been many times in my life where I have made mistakes and it's affected me a great deal. And I would like to think I'm not alone in that, but hopefully, actually, I would like to think that I am alone in that, but I probably am not. So when I when I thought of this idea, I was like, yes, this is a great idea. I love this idea. The humanity of making mistakes and learning resilience, very dramatic title. And then Wes, of course, came up with flubs aren't fatal to sort of shorten things. Um, and the closer that I got to this presentation, the more I thought, is it even a mistake to do this presentation? Because I just started getting more and more worried that it wasn't going to land correctly, that maybe I am sort of alone in this. I don't know. But I put it on the agenda, and to take it back at this point would have been ridiculous. So I kind of had to push forward, and here we are. But I do think that the things that scare me the most are the most worthwhile, and I try to move towards those things that are interesting and scary, um, for the most part. So, and for me, talking about how we mess up and recover from messing up at a leadership conference is definitely interesting and definitely a little bit scary. Um, but I think it's important. So you can't talk about how we react to making mistakes without talking about how things were at the very beginning. Most of us were born, unless there was some issues in utero, most of us were born as perfect beings with no baggage, no buttons to push, none of that stuff. And then some things happened. So I've heard many times people say things like, when this experience happened to me, it changed my life, it changed who I was, and it made me who I am today. And usually they're talking about something that they had to overcome, something usually bad that they had to overcome. But I don't really agree that that's the thing that makes us who we are. I don't think that our reactions to life and our experiences make us who we are. I think we already are something, and it's more than any sort of adjectives could describe. And we're sort of in my opinion, like a blank canvas. And then life happens, and our choices and reactions to the circumstances of life and to the people around us create the world we live in, but have little to do with who we or what or the work of art that we already are. So whether somebody is kind, distrustful, melodramatic, soft-spoken, etc., it's is always almost always linked to reactions to things that happened to us when we were kids. So something was going on when we were kids, and we reacted in a certain way. Maybe we reacted by being soft-spoken, so that we would be very quiet because somebody was very loud, or it's a reaction usually to something that's happened to us when we were kids, and a way of being that we created for ourselves. And I'm going to say it sounds dramatic, but to survive what we needed to survive. Um, Many of us have had traumatic experiences, either maybe a one-off, maybe parents got divorced, or there was a car accident. So a sort of one-off thing that occurred, and then many of us also have a continuing trauma that has occurred where maybe we don't get hugged as much or loved as much as we needed to be. We didn't feel safe as kids, so we internalized that and made that our fault because we needed to stay connected to our parents. And I know I'm getting kind of super deep here, but it does have to do with this whole thing about how we react to mistakes. Trust me. Um, so these things that we created when we were kids, they served us back then. They helped us. But they can really mess us up now that we're adults because, especially when there's a mistake that's made, because that comes with a certain amount of vulnerability. Whenever we're feeling vulnerability, we tend, as humans, I certainly do, tend towards to go back to an earlier time um, that we felt vulnerable, and this sort of feels the same way. So I ask you to challenge your thoughts about who you are, and if something ends up in this questioning about who you are, and like that's a deep question, I get it. It's not like I'm just going to think about that. This is a lifelong process, pretty much. It's growing as a person. So if you challenge these thoughts and you come up with something like, "Why do I do that? What is this about?" If something ends up being a reaction to something from long ago that no longer serves you, there are ways to get out of that groove. I'm not going to go too much into that because, like I said, I'm not a therapist, but therapy is one of those ways, certainly. So let's talk about how these things can affect us now in the workplace and what that might look like. So, what if you were taught that apologizing when you're wrong, when you actually have done something wrong, has you looking weak? Whether you are weak or not is not the discussion, but whether you feel like you look weak. So, most of us are not taught how to apologize or repair a relationship, and it can be scary. So, many people just don't do it. So I would say when you talk about repair, because this is one of the questions that somebody who looked at my PowerPoint asked, what does repair exactly mean? Well, that's exactly what it means is apologizing, is repairing the connection that you had. And it seems a weird word to use maybe to talk about connection for people at work, but um, Wes and I have a connection because he's my supervisor, and we have to have a trusting relationship so that he knows that I won't do anything crazy, maybe like what I'm doing right now. I don't know, but that we can rely on one another in the ways that we need to be able to work together effectively. Um, so ego can get in the way, and a moment which could have held a really great connection and rebuilding of trust passes because we haven't been able to apologize and repair. And instead, disconnection and distrust, they are created. So, connection is, as human beings, our deepest desire and our greatest fear at the same time. That word and can hold so much. It's quite an amazing word, actually. Our deepest desire and our greatest fear. Just think about that for a moment because there is a certain amount of trust that has to occur between people, friendships, spouse relationships, these kinds of things. You have to be able to trust people, and if you aren't taught what that looks like or what that is, it can really affect things, even and especially at work. So remember, a good apology means listening more than anything. If you listen, you actually might learn what somebody was most affected by when you've done something wrong. It might not be what you think it is. And it's always a good idea to find out what it is. And then you can apologize for the real thing that hurt somebody or whatever has occurred. So, this is the 7 elements of trust. This came from Brene Brown, and one of them is accountability. And this is one of those things where you have to take accountability for something. I've had situations where somebody has done something wrong to me or to somebody that I care about, and they don't quite have ownership of the thing that they've done wrong. And so any apologies sort of feel flat and lifeless and mean absolutely nothing. Um, that's not the way to repair a relationship, certainly. So you have to have some accountability when it comes to owning up to your mistakes and apologizing. You have to know what the thing is that actually affected somebody. So, what if you were taught that you are no good if you don't do a good job? Good, whatever the heck that means, right? I have had many conversations with my compliance team about that because a lot of us are very connected we've connected our self-worth to our job. And it's such a dangerous thing to do because mistakes happen. Mistakes can happen all the time. In fact, before we got on, or before Thomas got on, he was talking about how somebody had left something out of something online. I think it was an online publication or some sort of publication. And that person totally freaked out. And for Thomas, he was like, "Oh, well, that's okay. I mean, it's mistakes happen." Um, but that's because Thomas, if I can say this about him, which is probably true, he doesn't connect his self-worth to his job. And so for him, it was like, okay, mistakes happen. But for the person who actually made the mistake, I would say maybe they have connected their self-worth. And that's a tough thing to do. So and the other trap that we have is that the thing that we do as our work often falls in line with the things that we did to survive as kids. What I would call our like bag of tricks. So it's no coincidence that I am, in compliance, and that I'm a manager of people. Those two things, I like to have control over things. That falls in line quite nicely with my bag of tricks, and I also um, think that compliance lends itself to sort of figuring things out and coming up with solutions and being that person to come up with solutions to things. I really enjoy that a lot. I have a sort of competitive streak. I think people are probably going to laugh at that, but that is definitely true. And I think that it just makes a lot of sense that I've landed where I am. But this bag of tricks can get in my way a lot. If I'm so competitive that I'm not actually thinking about others, that's a problem. If I'm thinking about others, but I'm not thinking about how to have this part of the business of my job work effectively, if I'm thinking too much about other people and how it would affect their feelings and my feelings about their feelings, then that doesn't work either. So it is definitely something that I have to constantly look out for. So, so if you've attached your self worth to your job and what you do and how well you do it, mistakes can be impossible to sit with, even sometimes devastating, leading to getting fired because you just can't get past it. So I've seen a lot of people who get a write up, and not a lot of people, but I've seen people who get a write up and make a real effort to improve and make sure that that thing that went wrong doesn't go wrong again. And then I've also, on the other side of it, seen people fall completely apart and never recover. um, so just remember that who we are has nothing to do with our reactions to old experiences, and it has certainly nothing to do uh, with what we do. All right. So, how do you get past it? What do you do if your supervisor can't get past it? So, mistakes, whether they're big, they're small, they have us feeling embarrassed or even ashamed. We worry that our professional credibility is hanging by a thread. Um, so you just take a deep breath, and we can go through some of the steps that I have in the next few slides or after this next one. So about our supervisors, unless they are truly evil or thrive on negative energy, which is unlikely, your boss doesn't like conflict either. No one likes conflict. It might seem like people like conflict because they yell a lot or they get crazy, but that's a reaction to an old thing, right? That is not somebody who enjoys conflict. That's somebody who's avoiding conflict by taking over the conflict. So instead of going, you know, going down the drain, so to speak, and thinking all these thoughts, these stories about how your boss is feeling, stay in communication with your boss, your supervisor. You might be tempted to just keep your head down and avoid him or her because you might be nervous about talking with them or getting feedback on your work. But if your boss does have concerns about you, going underground will only make them worse. And keeping open lines of communication and talking with him or her about the good work you're doing will help mitigate the concerns that were raised earlier from this error. So, step 1A, allow yourself to feel bad about it. I mean, yeah, go through that process. Feel bad about it. Feel what all of that is, but not for too long. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's natural to feel frustrated, embarrassed, for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes emotions get stuck, so you want to feel the feels, but you don't want to stay inside of the feels forever. So instead of maybe dissipating, these things build, and then when that happens, it's important to release that pent up energy in a healthy way and as soon as possible. For instance, you could go for a jog. You could take kickboxing. That's always super fun, just punching things that you're allowed to punch. Journaling, a lot of people do that. I cannot do that myself, but a lot of people do that. Or talking about it with a therapist, a coach, or a friend who can give you a sense of perspective, because perspective is the thing that actually moves you on to the next level. I mean, this really is a multi-level thing. When you actually make a mistake that has you feeling all these embarrassed feelings, talking to someone who can go, yeah, but you did all these other things that are so great. So I don't think you should focus on this one bad thing. Sometimes getting an outside perspective makes all the difference. I recently spoke at the Novogradic conference, and I thought, oh my God, that was terrible. I did a horrible job. And I talked to a couple different people about it. I'm like, oh my God, it was awful. And I had to spend the whole weekend just thinking these terrible thoughts, having all these stories about how I talked too much. I said this, I said that. I shouldn't have said those things, or I should have said these things. Terrible. And then I just decided, bravely, I might add, that I would just talk to the person who was the moderator, the person that had asked me to go and be on this panel. And it's a person that, I don't have a very solid relationship with, I'll say that. And, maybe we've had some issues in the past. So, trust is a little iffy, but I entrusted her with my thoughts about what I thought happened a little bit. I didn't go crazy. And then she said, oh no, this was great. And that was great. And she just gave me her perspective, which was worth much more than mine, because mine was in here and hers, she saw the whole thing. So sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask somebody else, maybe even somebody that you don't know very well, how you think that mistake went, or even if it was a mistake at all, and get their perspective. Much needed. Um, the one thing that I to watch out for is shame. To be clear, shame is not I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. Shame is not I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. If you're feeling shame, definitely talk to a trusted friend or colleague, and it's the best way to make it disappear. How you know that you're feeling shame as opposed to guilt or embarrassment is if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to talk about it to your best friend. If you can't talk about it to your best friend, you're probably feeling shame, and you most certainly should talk to your best friend about it. That is the best way to get past shame, because it can't stand the light of day. Okay, step 1B. Fix your mistake if you can and apologize, but don't go crazy. If it's a mistake that can be fixed, fix it. Then let your boss know what happened and apologize. Depending on how big or small the mistake was, you can do it maybe by email or in person. So, for instance, hi, so and so, I sent you the wrong sales report this morning. I'm sorry about that. I just emailed you the correct one, but please let me know if there's anything else I can do. But bam, and that's it. Some mistakes are easily fixed like that. Others maybe take a little bit of time, and others that are even worse than that might take way more time, because now you're building trust. You're having to build trust again. Um, it's definitely something that we just shouldn't go too crazy about it, because I feel like sometimes with certain mistakes that are small, it highlights um, the mistake even more, and maybe it calls it out for your supervisor. um, there's no need for that. It's just no excuses, no justifications, no verbally flogging yourself. No one likes to hear that or see that, or hear that. but just acknowledge it and move on. And if your colleagues were affected by it in some way, apologize to them as well. Um, Apologies are the first step to rebuilding trust, but be mindful that you don't need to apologize to everybody. Not everybody in the office needs to know about things. It's definitely not necessary for that. Keep it in perspective. Once again, perspective. It's a way to reconnect with yourself. Actually, I think the biggest relationship or the most important relationship that we have the most amount of trouble with is ourselves. So, as I said, when we were some of us when we were kids. Had to disconnect from our. Did I say this? I might not have even said this. We had to disconnect from ourselves so that we could stay connected to our parents because we needed them to survive. And we did that to survive. And now, as adults, we've said to ourselves, oh, well, this must be my fault, or I'm the bad person because I did this thing. But not this other person, or not, it wasn't just a mistake. This is like a devastating thing that has now occurred. But we definitely have this sometime, well, a lot of us have this voice inside of our heads who know it's an adult voice, and that adult voice says, "We did our best. We know we did our best. We know we didn't mean to do that, whatever the mistake was." And a good way to do that is to pretend that it's somebody else who made the mistake. Would you be as mean to that other person? Would I be as mean to KPW as I am to myself, or Gwen, or Rachel, or Gina, or Matt? I mean, really, I would never be as mean to any of those people as I am to myself. So I always have to remember that and keep an objective eye like that. So ask yourself some questions. What was the mistake? What actions led to the mistake? What were the consequences of the mistake? What should have been done instead? How can this be prevented in the future? There are many things you won't know until you look at the situation from an unbiased perspective, as if someone else has done it, even. So, confront your worst case scenario, then let it go. This is a tough one. All of these are pretty tough, but this one, pretty tough. So sometimes your mind, or my mind, exaggerates or distorts the potential consequences for your mistake, sending you into a state of agony and stressing you out, which ironically can cause you to make more mistakes. This is what happens when people get some sort of performance evaluation that's not very good, and then it has them just, going down the drain very slowly and painfully. um, it can be helpful to confront your worst case scenario, whatever that may be, so that you can make peace with it and move on. So you might say to yourself, okay, I messed up, and you know what? Maybe I'll get fired. But it's highly unlikely because it's very costly and time intensive for employers to replace great employees, and I usually do a terrific job. But what if that happens? I will survive. I'm resourceful and creative, and I won't let anything, not even a job loss, derail my life, my health, or my happiness. Nothing is forever. Nothing is promised as forever in this world, not even a job. And I know it's super scary because it has happened to me where had a job that wasn't right for me a long time ago, well before I met Thomas, actually, well before. And it wasn't the right job for me. And I failed at it and they let me go. And it was a terrible time. It was a good 2 weeks. And then I found something else that still wasn't a good fit for me. And then after that, I got to property management and started working as an admin. And here we are. But I think that you can definitely survive this, and there's ways to do that. Even if you have kids, a family, whatever, a house, there are ways to survive this. Staying positive and understanding what it really looks like in reality. Is this going to lead to firing? I had a person who every time that something went wrong, and she had a lot of things that went wrong, she would say, "I'm going to get fired now, aren't I?" It's like little teeny, no big deal mistakes that happened, where she was just trying to learn things. And I would say to her, "Why do you keep thinking that? It's really that's not what's going to happen." And if you speak that worst case scenario, don't speak it to people at work or your boss. Don't do that. There's no need to put that in anybody's mind. This is for trusted friends only, maybe trusted family members only. But definitely, it's not something that you should. The worst case scenario should never be out there in the workplace. Okay. Step 4, have a private meeting with your boss. So I know that there's been times where I've been unclear about things, or I feel like I'm not quite understanding what Wes wants. And so I will have a meeting with him, or he will pull me into a meeting with him, so that we can work whatever it is out. So this person is actually your supervisor is the best person to talk to, because they know your work product, your normal work product, and they can see how something went wrong. So, you can say, can you help me figure out where I went wrong here? I want to rectify the situation, but I'm not sure how. What can I do to make things better? Or even how can I avoid this in the future? It is a scary thing, even because if you feel like you've messed up very badly, that is a very scary thing to do, and I get it. But it's the best way to feel better. It's the fastest way to feel better. Because even if your boss gives you worst case scenario, like, oh wow, this is a really big one. This is a really big one, and I don't know what's going to happen. Then now and you can figure it out from there, because now you're more in control of what's actually happening. Now you understand. And if it's not as bad as you think, if it's actually not that bad at all, it's a way of humanly connecting with your boss, to kind of say, let's build trust again. Maybe I've lost trust in myself, and you can help me build trust with myself, and maybe you've lost trust with me. It's definitely a way of reconnecting and building trust. Create a game plan for the next time, because there's gonna be a next time. So evaluate what you need, not the same one, hopefully, but there's going to be a next time where you mess up, because that's what we do. We're humans. We all mess up, and it's okay. Evaluate what you need to do differently next time to make sure this same mistake doesn't happen again. Were you multitasking? Oh, this is a big one. Were you multitasking beyond your ability with dozens of tabs open on your browser? And were you rushing too fast to hit send on that email, missing important details in the process? How many of you have done this one? Where you've said something about somebody that you didn't want them to read, and you sent it to them by accident? Hey, fun. Yeah, I've done that twice in my work life, and not good, not cool, not a good look. Yeah, but what can you do? You have to apologize. You have to tell them that you messed up, and explain why you said that about them is actually quite important. And if they are mad at you, then they are. And that's what has to happen for a while. And then you have to build trust again, and make that relationship strong again. But yeah, that's not a good one. If you're always missing deadlines and behind in your work, consider waking up earlier. I don't know. So you can get head start on the day, incorporating healthy habits like taking walks or meditating, if that's something that you do for a few minutes, can also help improve your focus. So during the day, finding ways to take breaks is actually better than slogging through things. Slogging through things has been shown statistically, although I do not have the statistics on this, please do not ask me for them, to show that your work product actually declines. But if you take breaks and you take care of yourself throughout the day, then that actually increases and improves your work product. And then this one's really important. Just be nice to yourself. Be kind. And get curious about things. Remember, I had said in a previous slide about challenging your ideas of who you are. Um, this is maybe challenge is too aggressive of a word, but being curious about who you are. Why did I do that? Why did this happen? So learn from your mistakes and eliminate any negative self talk, and then let it go. The mistakes you make won't ruin your career, but how you react to them might actually ruin your career. Be curious about where the mistake and even the reaction to the mistake came from. There's so much to be learned about yourself with that inner conversation. Just like you aren't your experiences, you are not your mistakes. Forgive yourself. The hardest thing, in my opinion, is learning to forgive yourself. Having others forgive you, that's pretty easy, actually. All of the people that I have made a mistake in front of, or maybe made a mistake with, have long ago forgotten it. But I still remember it, which means I have to forgive myself. Not everything, but some things. So resilience, because now we're back to resilience. Resilience is more available to people curious about their own line of thinking and behaving. This is Brene Brown. She is someone who's at the forefront of shame and vulnerability, and creating trust and creating resilience. Okay, so I think I have a video for you. I hope it works. Uh-oh. Oh no. Me again. Me again. Wait, can I do it? No, that's not going to be it, is it? Oh no. It's not working. Oh wait. Nope. Hopefully you can hear it. Okay. So I don't know if you heard the sound, but that's okay because it basically said everything. And like once you see the bear, you can't unsee the bear. And that's the great thing about staying curious and figuring out what it is that's making things happen for you that don't serve you anymore. So when difficult things happen, a colleague shoots you an awful look at a meeting, a partner breaks up with you, you fail in a project, there's an emotional response. Before you can articulate why, you have the urge to punch somebody or devour a dozen donuts or hide in bed for a fortnight. That's 2 weeks, by the way, almost. And that's the spot where Brene Brown says you need to wade into the discomfort of that reaction. You have to get curious about it and ask what's going on. What am I feeling? What's driving it? And how am I responding to it? Working on yourself is a lifelong process. There's always something new to learn. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that we're so complicated? Resilience is defined as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, and it's also the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, and the object is us, and the way that we bounce back from things that happen in our lives, such as making mistakes. Alrighty. And now for some inspirational quotes, like my hang in there kitties. People have heard all of these when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has already been opened for us. Resilience is based on compassion for ourselves as well as for others. It's your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop. Of course, this PowerPoint will be available if you want to read these further. So, the point is, mistakes are integral to our own personal growth. Embrace your mistakes and see them as valuable life lessons because it shows us what we really want out of life, how to take responsibility, how to let go of our fears, how to have confidence, and teaches us how to accept ourselves, flaws and all. And that's it. Hold on, please. Okay. Oh gosh, there's a lot of stuff here. Oh, okay. So you guys can hear the. That's okay. You can hear the video. It still works. Am I behind? What time is it? Oh my gosh, am I right on time? Okay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that we're going to go into a break. Am I right about that, Megan? Hold on one sec. Sorry, guys. Okay. All right. So we are. We're going to go to a break, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next session. Thank you. Bye.